Hi everyone, I'm Crystal Driesbach from Don't Waste Durham. I want to say hello to all my fellow ERUFians and friends of ERUFians. All of you, I love you. I want to thank Denise and the team from the Earth Justice Action Group for inviting me to give this talk. So today I want to tell you a little about me and the work of my organization, how we're creating solutions locally to tackle big global problems, and what the circular economy, which we're working to promote and proliferate everywhere, has to do with you. So the organization will turn 7 years old next month. Our mission is to reduce the amount of trash produced in the community by preventing it in the first place. So we have a lot of great staff and volunteers with the same core belief that trash is preventable. So I never leave a room full of people without making sure they know where Durham's trash goes. Durham does not have its own landfill. Every day, Durham trucks its trash 96 miles away to Sampson County on 8 to 12 semi-tractor trailers per day, 6 days a week, and sometimes on Sundays too. And then those trucks come back 97 miles on 6 miles to the gallon. And they do that 8 to 12 trucks a day, 6 days a week. Sampson County is a lower wealth county than Durham. And if you'd like to watch our video about this, it's 60 seconds long. You can find it on our website, don'twastedurham.org. Now, trash is not really consumers' fault. There are just some really terrible options out there right now. So first we've got compostables. Now they sound nice, they sound fancy, but the vast majority of things which are compostable end up in the landfill. And if they even break down at all, they do so anaerobically, which means without access to oxygen. And when something breaks down anaerobically, they produce methane gas. So is this really a better option for climate change? We're not so sure. Organics in the landfill is actually one of the primary drivers of global climate change. They also cost about 10 times more than other types of materials. And for what, if they're still ending up in the landfill? So next is recyclables. Very little of what is recyclable is actually ever recycled. And the cost of paying the sorting facilities is becoming less and less affordable for cities. And meanwhile, few landfills are left and they're filling up and closing. And as a result, you'll probably see some cities start to put bans on single-use food containers. So these so-called more sustainable options come at a huge increase in price. Sometimes they're cost prohibitive for businesses, and they still end up in the landfill. So I now have to tell you a few hard truths that I'm afraid once I tell you, you cannot unknow. It's been a long-held misperception that recycling is a way to get materials back into production and the way to be an eco-conscious member of society, to recycle all of your jars and boxes and newspapers. Well, as it turns out, only 9% of anything that's recyclable in the entire world is actually recycled, meaning 91% of recyclables end up in the landfill or incinerated. Many people think that recycling is a service that the city provides out of wanting to do the right thing. No. The truth is that recycling is a commodities market, just like any other. Recycling facilities that we have locally, like Sunoco, Republic, Waste Industries, these are for-profit companies which sell bales of various types of plastic to manufacturers who make stuff with recycled plastic. You may also have heard that China, which has long been a buyer of our recycled plastic, issued a law that they will no longer accept recyclables from the US with a higher than 0.5% contamination rate, and that's an impossible rate for the US to achieve. A lot of our recyclables are terribly contaminated, so we're quickly losing markets for these materials. So Sunoco Recycling is the private company in Raleigh, hired by the city of Durham to sort our recyclables. Sunoco finds that only 25% of what's in those blue bins is profitable for them to process. They actually have to pay someone to haul away 75% of the materials that arrive at their facility because there's no profit in processing those materials. And sadly, it turns out that virgin plastic, or what is also known as brand new plastic made from petroleum, is way cheaper for manufacturers to buy than recycled plastic. So it's actually pretty hard to get recycled plastics into new products. Virgin plastic is also highly desirable by manufacturers for being clear in color. The production of virgin plastic is projected to increase by 40% in the next 10 years. And this makes plastic companies very excited. They love the idea that people believe single use is fine as long as it's recycled. Companies like Sunoco have had to increase their prices to account for their losses, so recycling is becoming too costly for cities, and some are already shutting down their recycling programs. Another sad fact is the symbol at the bottom of containers and bottles is very misleading. It indicates the type of plastic or the type of material. It does not actually mean that something's recyclable. There are hundreds of types of number 5 plastics, for example. Just because it's number 5 doesn't mean it's one type of plastic, and not all of those types of number 5 are easily recyclable. Getting people to recycle more and better continues to be very challenging. I think we all know why. Recycling is understandably confusing and full of myths and barriers, and the things you can recycle vary from place to place. So just a couple more things of bad news before I move on to the good news. Each time plastic is recycled, it's downcycled. It's not keeping single use out of the landfill. It's just delaying its eventual death with destination landfill. Every time we choose bottled water over a reusable, refillable bottle, or plastic forks over reusable, we're perpetuating the production of more brand new plastic. And finally, studies show that if consumers perceive that something is recyclable, they will use and consume more. So that's consumer behavior research for you. So next I want to talk about some good news. What is the circular economy? This is a term you'll begin to hear more and more in the mainstream. This illustration explains the circular economy in a very nice, simple way. The first part of the diagram shows the linear economy, and that's what we live in now. It's basically extracting resources from the earth, manufacturing things with those materials, using them, and throwing them away. Recycling then tries to do a little something better, but most recyclables, if they're recycled at all, can be only recycled a limited number of times before eventually landing in the landfill. Now, people will tell you all kinds of things about the circular economy, but what it all comes down to is very simple. It's designing out waste and keeping materials in use. Keeping things in use for as long as possible in the form that they were originally intended. That's not recycling. That's creating higher quality, longer lasting, modular, repairable, refurbishable, rentable, borrowable, and reusable items. And you do that by design from the beginning. Then, and only then, after a long useful life, when those things no longer fulfill their original purpose, getting them back so then we can get them into production to make new things. And in a circular economy, those items would be designed with the end in mind to maximize recyclability. And that is not yet the situation in which we are in today. So how does this relate to climate change? The Ellen MacArthur Foundation, recently published a paper called Completing the Picture: How the Circular Economy Tackles Climate Change. Greenhouse gas emissions are not falling quickly enough to achieve the climate targets. That is something we know. And we also know that if the whole world switched to renewable energy today, the entire world, 100% renewable energy, it would only cut greenhouse gas emissions by 55%. So how can we achieve these targets? The remaining 45% of emissions needs to come from how we make and use products. So circular economy, as you can see, as I've already explained, the linear economy, here we are, natural resources. This is what I call the take and trash model. This is where technological and biological materials are all mixed up. It is not maximized for recyclability, and of course we use energy from fossil fuels. In a circular economy, we have biological materials like our food and our agriculture. We produce those foods, we eat those foods, and then we enrich the soil so we can make more. That's very straightforward. We all hope for that future one day. And in terms of technical materials, we make them, we use them, and we incentivize the recovery of those materials so that we can make things with them again. And of course, in an ideal situation, all of the energy used would be from renewable energy resources. So, I want to also point out that circular economy efforts allow for significant progress toward 11 of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, 11 of the 17. When materials are designed and circulated for reuse, we create local jobs, we increase local resiliency by keeping resources local, and we decrease our dependence on global markets. So my organization's approach to preventing trash is in 3 parts, and I want to start with innovation. Innovation in technology and infrastructure that supports a circular economy, or what I call a reuse economy. So, innovation. Many times, incredible innovation comes about in dire situations, like the one we're currently in. And recent innovations to fully sterilize and reuse protective masks has actually been pretty astounding. Here's a recent example of a position statement that just came out this past Monday. I co-wrote this statement along with Circular Triangle and Sustainable Duke. We are advocating for policy that uses existing evidence to sterilize and reuse protective masks and other gear for use by healthcare workers and first responders. And in the longer term, we're asking that materials needed for these durable, reusable masks that are designed with the end in mind to be sourced locally, and localized sterilization infrastructure and jobs to be created. So for almost 3 years, Don't Waste Durham has operated a circular economy business in Durham called Green to Go. It's a reusable takeout container service. I'll explain a little bit more in detail in a moment. It's an example of the circular economy on a small scale that we'd like to see on a larger scale. So we're creating a microcosm in Durham of the world we'd like to see. So it is a reusable takeout container service where durable, reusable containers are checked out like a library book at restaurants using a mobile app and then returned to any return station that's all over town. We pick up, we wash and sanitize centrally, and then we redistribute to our partner restaurants. And we're expanding to many more restaurants in the coming months, as well as adding coffee cups in coffee shops and container service for caterers. The idea for this program came to me in 2009, in the middle of the night. I became consumed with the notion that this was something the world needed, and everyone told me it wouldn't work, and it happens to be working. So here's a little bit about how Green to Go works. You can see our illustration here. Someone has their mobile phone open at a grocery store checkout. They can check out their container that they have just filled from the hot bar, and they go home and eat their delicious food, enjoy it, and when they're ready, they return it to any return station in town. They scan the QR code on the box to let us know they've returned it and that return station has a dirty box for us to pick up. We use bicycles and trailers to pick up the dirty containers, transport them to our wash facility where we wash, sanitize, and then we redistribute to the restaurants. But the main thing I want to highlight here about Green to Go is that we've built the technology and the infrastructure that supports the reuse economy. Technology and infrastructure are the keys. They make possible new supply chains that support reuse. If we want to stop doing things the way we've been doing them, we have to start doing things differently. And the only way to do things differently is to figure out what's missing and build those things that are missing. So I want to talk about technology for a moment. Obviously, by its very nature, reusable items, in order to be a better option, must be used, recovered, repeat, in order to be better than the environment, than single use. Technology does two things for us. First, it's the ability to track and manage assets for operations in a reuse economy, the way we do with Green to Go. And secondly, it's a platform that motivates behavior change in consumers and businesses to do the right thing. The key one being incentivizing the recovery or return of the materials, which is very important. If you're not incentivizing people to return them, which we do, you cannot reuse them. And this is a concept that is applicable to the reuse economy everywhere, and we're not just talking about food containers. So when you incentivize the recovery of the material you're trying to use, you get it back, and then you wash, sanitize, and redistribute to be used again and again, thus making the impacts that you want to see. So I want to talk about some of Green to Go's impacts. First, and I like to believe in the love aspect as well as the other harder impacts, we empower people with concrete, tangible actions that they can personally take to contribute to collective community action which tackles this global trash issue. So, that is to say, if people are depressed by reading the newspaper on their couch and being overwhelmed with global climate issues, they might feel paralyzed. Green to Go gives people a concrete, tangible thing that they can personally do that reports back to them what their impacts are. Green to Go has saved 6,000 or more by now, takeout containers from the landfill. We have offset huge amounts of carbon emissions, equivalent to 45 acres of forest for a year. And we participate in monthly knowledge sharing calls between 14 reuse businesses across the world, including the US, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, and China. Our unique Durham program has led us to become global thought leaders in the circular economy. And next, I want to talk about part 2 of the special recipe for transitioning to a reuse economy. And that is infrastructure. So I'm not talking about creating some huge new system. I am talking about using the existing infrastructure. So let's go back to recycling for a moment. Recycling is an existing infrastructure that is already built into almost every city in the US. It's an industry that is well known to have a lot of problems. Well, I want you to think for a moment to imagine a future where all kinds of durable, reusable packaging, like grocery store food packaging, soap bottles, shipping boxes from Amazon, what if they were reusable and durable, and that was simply a way of life? And what if we could put that reusable packaging into our curbside bins, and when you were through with them, you simply put them in your bin? We believe in a future where recycling companies, the existing companies which are not doing so well at the moment, could be the infrastructure that collects, sorts, and ships durable, reusable packaging of all types back to retailers and manufacturers to be used again and again. So think about that for a moment. Rather than recycling companies becoming sorting facilities for manufacturers who might want to use the bales of those products, we instead turn recycling facilities into distribution facilities. So we had the opportunity to answer that question. Can our city's recycling infrastructure support the recovery of reusables? Our pilot project this past year was in partnership with the City of Durham Solid Waste Department, Sunoco Recycling, and some IoT technology partners. That stands for Internet of Things. I'll get to that in a moment. The purpose was to test whether the recycling industry could be the existing city-scale resource that supports a societal shift to reusables. And I'm going to try now to play the video showing what we did.
We all know single-use plastic is not a good idea. Yet every single day, we continue to produce it, ship it, buy it, and throw it away. Wait, hold up. I know you're thinking. I don't throw it away. I recycle. Did you know that 75% of everything that goes to the recycling facility is not recycled? What if we stopped? What if we tried something new? Instead of taking these marvels of human engineering and smashing them down, breaking them into little bits and selling them off to foreign buyers, why not pick up, sort, and redistribute those containers locally? Our plan was to tag various types of durable, reusable containers with RFID and Bluetooth tags. Partner with the City of Durham and Sunoco Recycling to track the containers along their journey from the curb to the truck all the way to the recycling facility in Raleigh. Step 1. We dropped a series of tag containers at the beginning, middle, and end of the recycling route. Step 2. We followed the truck to the transfer station and recovered the containers using our RFID and Bluetooth trackers, then assessed their damage. Step 3. Load it all up on another truck to transport to Raleigh. Step 4. Demonstrate how RFID can help sorting out the reusables on the recycling assembly line. Thanks to Innovate Durham, we will be able to use this data to design further experiments, new types of durable containers, and create new partnerships that can pave the way for a new type of recycling.
In a nutshell, what we did was tag various types of reusable packaging with radio frequency identification tags and place them into the blue curbside bins in residential neighborhoods, tracked them to the Sunoco facility in Raleigh, and used an RFID scanner to sort them off the line. Among the many things we learned was what aspects of the existing recycling infrastructure would need to be modified to accommodate the sorting, recovery, and redistribution of durable reusables. If we want different outcomes for our future, we must do things differently. And what I've been describing is absolutely within the realm of possibility because of the innovation we have in technology and infrastructure. Don't Waste Durham is now working with Duke University to show that a profitable value chain exists for the recovery of durable, reusable materials, not just in food containers, but across all industries and manufacturing. So, speaking of the infrastructure that is needed for the circular economy, if you're so inclined to help Don't Waste Durham reach the next level of impact, we are raising money to move into our very own wash facility. So for the past 3 years, how do we do it? We've been partnered with a fellow nonprofit, TROSA, which gives us use of their commercial dishwasher after hours. But we need much more than 2 drying racks, which they allow us to put in their space. We now have a building picked out and everything. And this new facility will give us all the physical space and the expanded capacity we need to provide safe and sanitized reusable options for takeout and delivery for any and all food vendors in Durham and beyond, including restaurants, coffee shops, grocery stores, schools, retirement communities, catering companies, corporate cafes, sports venues, and more. But we cannot move into this building without funds to cover upfits, permits, and equipment, and we will appreciate any contribution to get us to this goal. Don't Waste Durham is also looking for new board members. If you have skills and experience in finance or fundraising, I hope you'll contact me. Please reach out to me with questions about the circular economy and how it relates to you. Until next time, I wish you peace and safety in these very strange times. Bye-bye. Oh, geez.